Hello and good evening. I'm Ted McLaughlin, and I'm here today with the famous Greek hero Odysseus. He's come all this way to talk to us about his life in ancient Greece and about some old stories from his past. We all know who you are, but please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your own personal history.
Thanks, Ted. Well, I'm Odysseus, an ancient Greek hero who currently lives on Mount Olympus and lived in ancient Greece. I was born on the island of Ithaca as a result of an affair between my father Sisyphus and my mother Antidia. I was the king of Ithaca and the subject of the Odyssey written by the great Greek poet Homer, as well as one of the most famous heroes of all antiquity.
Wow, so you say you're one of the most famous heroes of all antiquity. Isn't that thinking highly of yourself? How is it you know that?
I know this because I was a great hero in the Trojan War and played quite a significant part in the event. At one point, I alone was responsible for leading thousands across the seas to their homeland. The goddess Athena also once said to me that here among mortal men, you're by far the greatest at tactics. So there's also that.
Speaking of your greatest adventures, such as the Trojan War, could you tell us a bit more about some of your other achievements and greatest adventures?
Well, Ted, I've been on several voyages in my youth, which are prescribed and can be read in myths found in such works as the Iliad and the Odyssey. After the 10 years at the Trojan War, I adventured to many different places. I've been to the city of Sicyones, Libya, the island of Cyclopses, where my men and I were trapped by the Cyclops Polyphemus, the island of Sirens, island of Aeolus, or Gygia, the land of Laestrygonians, where me and my men barely made it out alive, escaping from the savage cannibals there, the island of Aea, where I met the witch Circe, the Underworld, realm of Hades, and many, many more places, way too many to list right now.
Wow. Could you please tell us a bit more about your trip to the Underworld and a bit about what happened there?
Of course. It was a very long journey filled with visits from many different people. So first of all, I went to the island Aea where I met the witch Circe when rescuing my men. After a year there, I felt I had to leave. I knew that to continue life on my homeland, I had to travel through the underworld and receive advice from the shade of the famous Theban seer Tiresias. So before I left, Circe gave me instructions to travel to the world of Hades. When I got there, following the instructions I was given, I dug up a trench at the exact site I was told to, where I poured offerings of milk, honey, mellow wine, and pure water. I then sacrificed a ram and a ewe, letting the blood flow into the trench. This was believed to be a ceremony that would attract the dead, including Tiresias. First to approach me was one of my men who died the night before my crew and I left the island of Aea. His name was Elpenor, and he was the youngest in my crew. He died falling off the roof of the palace where he had gone to sleep that night. I forgot to bury him before departing the island, so when his shade approached me, he begged for some funeral rites. I felt really bad, so in response to this, when I got back, I returned to Aea and did as he asked. Another drawn to the blood was my mother, Antidia. Her shade told me that she died while I was at Troy out of sorrow from my absence. She was very stressed and worried about me and what kind of danger I was in, and if I would come home. The next soul I saw was the Theban seer Tiresias. He was the only shade who got to keep his intelligence after death, a privilege given to him either by Athena, Zeus, or Persephone. After drinking the blood of the ewe which I sacrificed, he was able to utter the prophecy to me. He told me many warnings that he foresaw, telling me all that would occur in the future. One of these warnings was of my house being occupied by Penelope's suitors, and then consequently, after my victory over these intruders, I reclaimed my house and wife. I was also seen by a few other people such as Achilles, Agamemnon, Ajav, and spirits of various ancient heroes.
So this adventure of yours, was it recited or told by any poets or writers for others to read about?
Yeah, the story about me going to the Underworld was interpreted and written by the Greek poet Homer in his work. The Odyssey, Book 11. I have written a version of the story myself, just based on what happened there. It is a modern-day interpretation of the myth Homer wrote. I wrote it so that people in this modern world are more capable of reading and understanding the story. This short story I wrote can be found on an online source called Wattpad.com and is titled Visit to the Underworld, and I encourage everyone listening to read it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come here and talk to us. It sounds like you've had an amazing trip to the Underworld. Sounds pretty interesting. If anyone would like to read Odysseus's self-written short story about his trip to the Underworld, there is a link in the description below. Please check it out.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.
It's all good.